There is something more dangerous than being chosen by a powerful man. Being seen by his enemies, because protection doesn't remove danger. It attracts it. And the moment Kamari stepped into his world, she didn't just become protected. She became a target. In a world where power is built on fear, where loyalty is tested in silence, and where one mistake can cost everything, a war had just begun. Not announced, not declared, but already in motion. Because somewhere in the shadows, people were watching, waiting, and now they knew about her. Her name is Kamari, and the child she carries might be the most dangerous secret in a world ruled by men like him. Kim Do-han. Because in his world, you don't protect something unless you're ready to destroy anyone who comes near it. Welcome back to the Mafia's Obsession, where power, betrayal, and obsession collide. If you thought part 1 was intense, then you're not ready for what comes next. Because this time, it's no longer about humiliation. It's about survival. The hallway felt longer than before. Not because it changed, but because everything had. Kamari didn't speak. She didn't ask questions. She didn't look back. Because she already knew whatever was happening downstairs was because of her. The guard walking beside her stayed silent, but his steps were faster now, more alert, more protective.
Now.
Talk about what? What's
When they
going
reached
on?
her door,
Not
he
here.
opened it
We need to find
immediately.
somewhere private.
"Stay inside,"
You're scaring me.
he said.
What was this about?
Not cold, not rude, but firm. Kamari stepped in slowly.
Is everything
The
okay?
door
You look
closed
worried.
behind her.
I'm just nervous about the baby.
And just like that,
But
she
we're
was
gonna
alone
do
again.
I know, thank you.
But this time, it didn't feel safe. Her eyes moved around the room. Everything was still the same, clean, perfect, untouched. But she wasn't. Her chest rose slowly, then fell. They know about her. The words echoed in her head, over and over again. Who were they? Why did it matter? And most importantly, what did they want? Kamari's hand moved to her stomach. Instinct, protection. Because now, this
We need
wasn't
to
just
talk about
about
this
humiliation
now.
anymore.
Talk about what? What's going on?
This was something
Not
else,
here. We need to
something
find somewhere
bigger,
private.
something
You're scaring me.
dangerous.
What was this about?
She walked toward the window, pulled the curtain slightly. Outside, everything looked normal. Guards in position, cars still, lights steady. But now she understood. Normal didn't mean safe. It meant controlled. A sudden noise downstairs broke the silence. Not loud, but sharp. Kamari froze, her breath catching. Because that sound didn't belong in a calm house. Then, footsteps, more than before, faster, heavier. Something was happening. And for the first time since she arrived, Kamari felt it clearly. Fear. Not the fear of being alone, not the fear of being rejected, but the fear of being seen. Because now, someone out there knew she existed. And in a world like his, that was never a small thing. Downstairs, the air had turned cold. Not quiet, not calm. Cold. The man on his knees trembled, not because of pain, but because he understood. This was no longer about answering questions. This was about consequences. Kim Do-han stood in front of him, still, composed. But his silence was heavier than anything else in that room. They know about her. The words had changed everything. Not his expression, not his posture, but the room. Everyone felt it, because now This wasn't a contained situation anymore. This was exposure. Kim's gaze remained fixed on the man. "Who sent you?" The question came again, calm, controlled. But this time, there was no patience behind it. The man swallowed hard, his voice shaking. I don't know names." Wrong answer. Kim didn't react immediately, which made it worse. Because when men like him don't react, it means they've already decided. "You followed her," Kim said. Not asking, confirming. The man nodded quickly. Yes, but I was told just to watch." A pause. Then Kim stepped forward. Just one step. But it was enough. Enough to make the man's voice disappear completely. "Watching becomes targeting," Kim said quietly. Silence. Because everyone in that room knew what that meant. Kim turned slightly, looking toward the man who had rushed in earlier. "Who knows?" The guard hesitated. Then, "Not everyone, but enough." That was the problem. Not full exposure, but partial. The most dangerous kind. Because it spreads, Kim's jaw tightened slightly, just slightly. Then, "Shut it down." Two
I can't
words.
believe how far we've
Immediate,
come.
final.
Every moment has
The
been
men
worth it.
moved without hesitation,
And now, a new
because
chapter
this
in
wasn't a
our lives.
situation to monitor anymore. This was something to eliminate. Kamari couldn't stay still. The silence in her room wasn't calm anymore. It was loud. Every second felt stretched. Every sound felt sharper. She sat on the edge of the bed, then stood, then paced. Because doing nothing felt worse than knowing. They know about her. The words refused to leave her mind. Her hand pressed gently against her stomach. Steady, protective. "I won't let anything happen," she whispered softly. But even she knew that wasn't something she could control. A knock came, quick. Kamari turned immediately. "Come in." The door opened. The same older woman stepped in, but this time, her calm was different. Tighter, more alert. "You shouldn't be by the window," she said quietly. Kamari frowned slightly. "Why?" The woman hesitated, just for a second, and then, "Because tonight, we don't assume anything is safe." That was enough. Kamari's chest tightened. "Is something happening?" she asked. The woman looked at her, really looked, then nodded once. "Yes. No explanation, no details. Just truth." Kamari swallowed, her throat dry now. "This is because of me," she said. Not a question. The woman didn't answer immediately. Then, "Everything is because of something," she replied. Careful, measured, but not denying it. Kamari looked away, her mind racing, because she finally understood. This wasn't just protection anymore. This was consequence. Downstairs, nothing had slowed down. If anything, it had sharpened. Men moved faster. Voices stayed low. Orders were shorter. Because now, there was no room for mistakes. Kim Du-han stood exactly where he had been, but the energy around him had changed. Not louder, not aggressive. Worse, focused. "Find out who spoke first," he said calmly. One of the men nodded immediately. It's already being handled. Kim's eyes shifted slightly. Handled or assumed? The man stiffened. Confirmed soon, he corrected quickly. Kim didn't respond. But the correction mattered. Because assumptions got people killed in the wrong direction. Another man stepped forward. Sir, if this spreads... It won't, Kim interrupted. Not loud, not harsh. Final. Because in his world, things didn't spread unless he allowed it. A pause. Then, move her location? The question hung in the air. Kim didn't answer immediately. For a second, he looked toward the staircase, toward where she was. Then, no, the room stilled, because that decision meant something. If we move her now, he continued, they know we're reacting. A pause. We don't react. That was the rule. We control. Silence. Because that was the difference between fear and power. Kim turned slightly. Lock the perimeter. Immediate movement. Double eyes on entry points. More movement. No one in or out without clearance. Final. The system tightened instantly. Not chaotic. Precise. Like it had done this before. Many times. The house didn't look different, but it felt different. Kamari noticed it the moment the door closed behind the woman. The silence had changed. It was no longer calm. It was controlled. She stood in the middle of the room, unmoving, listening. Footsteps passed in the hallway more often now, slower, heavier, more deliberate. Not normal movement, not casual. Guarded. Kamari walked toward the door. Her fingers hovered over the handle for a second. Then, she opened it. The hallway lights were brighter than before. Not warm, not soft. Clear, sharp. Two men stood at opposite ends, still, watching. Not watching her, watching everything. One of them glanced at her briefly, then nodded once, respectful but alert. Kamari stepped out slowly. Her heart was steady, but her mind wasn't. Because now she understood something clearly. This wasn't about comfort anymore. This was about containment. Is everything okay? She asked. The man closest to her didn't answer immediately. He studied her, not in a disrespectful way, not intrusive. Measured. Then, yes, ma'am. The same answer. Again. But now, it sounded different. Kamari tilted her head slightly. That's not a real answer, she said. The man held her gaze. It's the only one I'm allowed to give. That told her everything. Kamari exhaled slowly, then stepped further into the hallway. The man didn't stop her, didn't warn her, didn't question her. But his eyes followed her movement. Because even if she was under protection, she was still a variable. Kamari moved toward the staircase, each step careful, measured. Because she could feel it now. Something had already started. She reached the top of the stairs, paused. Voices. Low, sharp, controlled. Coming from below. Kamari didn't move closer immediately, but she listened. We're already too late. A man's voice, tense. Another voice followed. That depends on how far it's gone. Kamari's fingers tightened slightly. Because those weren't casual words. That was damage control. She took one slow step down, then another, just enough to see. The room below was active, men moving, talking, coordinating. And at the center, him, Kim Doohan, standing still, while everything else moved around him. That was the difference. He didn't react to chaos. He directed it. Kamari's eyes stayed on him. Sure, because something about him now was different. Not visibly, not obvious, but deeper, colder, like something had shifted inside him. One of the men spoke again. If they connect her to you, they won't, Kim said calmly. The interruption was immediate, absolute. Kamari's breath slowed, because there was no hesitation in his voice. No doubt, just certainty. Another man stepped forward, more careful this time. Sir, with respect, they've already started asking. That was the first real crack. Not in control. In time. Kim's eyes shifted slightly. Who? The question was quiet, but heavy. The man hesitated. Just for a second. Then, we're still confirming. Wrong answer. Kamari didn't need to be in that room to feel it. The air tightened instantly. Because vague answers didn't exist in his world. Kim took a step forward. Not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate. Then confirm faster, he said. No anger, no raised voice. But the message was clear. This wasn't a discussion. This was expectation. The man nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Kamari's chest tightened slightly. Because now, she wasn't just observing. She was understanding. This wasn't protection in a normal sense. This was structure, power, control. And now, she was inside it. A sudden movement caught her attention. One of the guards turned, looking directly up at her. Their eyes met. For a brief second. Then, everything stopped. Not the movement, not the operation, but the awareness. Because now, they knew she was there. Watching, Kim followed the guard's line of sight. Slowly, and for the first time since she came downstairs, his eyes met hers. Silence. Complete. The room didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Because that moment wasn't for them. It was between them. Kamari didn't step back, didn't hide, didn't pretend she hadn't been listening. She just stood there and held his gaze. Kim studied her. Not annoyed, not surprised, just aware. Then he made a decision. Clear the room. The command came calmly. Immediate reaction. The men moved without question, without delay. Within seconds, the space was empty, except for him and her. Kamari slowly walked down the remaining steps. Her heartbeat steady, but heavier now. Because this was no longer background. This was direct. She stopped a few feet away from him. Neither of them spoke immediately. Because some moments didn't need words right away. Kim looked at her, carefully. You shouldn't be out here, he said. Not harsh, not cold, but not soft either. Kamari crossed her arms slightly. You shouldn't be hiding things from me, she replied. Silence. Because that was the first real challenge. Not emotional, not reactive. Direct. Kim's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. "You heard enough," he said. "Not a question." Kamari nodded once. "Yes." A pause. Then, "Someone is watching." Her voice was steady. But no one is telling me who." Another pause. "And it has something to do with me." Silence filled the space again. Because now, she wasn't guessing. She was connecting. Kim studied her for a long second. Then, yes. Just one word. But it confirmed everything. Kamari's breath slowed. "Then I deserve to know what I'm walking into," she said. Not emotional, not desperate. Clear. Kim took a step closer. Not threatening, but enough to shift the space between them. "You're not walking into it," he said quietly. A pause. "You're already in it." That hit differently. Because it was true. Kamari's fingers tightened slightly. "Then stop treating me like I'm not," she replied. Silence. Heavy. Because she wasn't asking anymore. She was stepping forward. Into his world. And for the first time, she wasn't doing it blindly. Kim held her gaze. Longer now. Then, he nodded. Once. Decision made. "Then listen carefully," he said. And just like that, everything was about to change. The space between them didn't feel the same anymore. Not distant, not uncertain. Defined. Kamari stood still, her eyes locked on his, waiting. Because this time, he wasn't avoiding it. He was about to explain it. Kim Duhan didn't rush, didn't turn away, didn't soften it. "Someone didn't just notice you," he said calmly. A pause. "They were looking for you." Kamari's breath caught. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Because those words changed everything. "Looking for me?" she repeated. Her voice steady, but lower now. More careful. Kim nodded once. "Yes." No hesitation, no correction. Just confirmation. Kamari's fingers tightened slightly at her sides. "That doesn't make sense," she said. Because it didn't. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't connected. She wasn't important. The word slipped out quietly, almost like a conclusion. Kim watched her. "Then, that's where you're wrong." The air shifted. Because now, this wasn't about what she thought. It was about what he knew. Kamari frowned slightly. "How?" she asked. Not defensive, not emotional. Focused. Kim stepped back slightly, creating space. Not distance. Room. "For them," he said. You're not just a woman who was humiliated." A pause. "You're a variable." Kamari's brows pulled together. A variable for what? Kim didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned slightly, walking toward the table. Then stopped. "Power attracts attention," he said. Kamari listened, carefully. "When that attention finds something unexpected?" A pause. "It studies it." Her chest tightened. "Me?" Kim looked back at her. Yes. Simple, direct. Kamari shook her head slightly. I don't have power. Truth. Or at least, what she believed was truth. Kim stepped closer again. You stood beside me, he said. Her breath slowed. That changes how people see you. Silence. Because now she understood something she hadn't considered. This wasn't about who she was before. It was about where she stood now. And the moment that changes, Kim continued, you become something else. Kamari swallowed. Target? Kim didn't answer immediately. But his silence answered enough. A slow exhale left her lips. Who are they? She asked. This time, her voice carried weight. Because this question mattered more than anything else. Kim's eyes darkened slightly. Not anger, not irritation. Recognition. Because this was the real question. The kind of people, he said slowly, who don't ask before they take. Kamari felt it in her chest. That wasn't vague. That was warning. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Protective. Because now, this wasn't just about her anymore. They think I matter to you, she said, connecting it, understanding it. Kim held her gaze. Yes, no denial, no hesitation, just truth. Kamari's breath slowed again. And do I? She asked. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Not strategic, not careful. Honest. The room went still. Because that question was dangerous. Kim didn't respond immediately. For the first time, there was a pause. Not long, but noticeable. Then, you matter because you're under my protection? The answer was controlled. Clear, but not complete. Kamari noticed. Because she was paying attention now. Only that? She asked. A slight push. Not aggressive, but intentional. Kim stepped closer. Close enough now that the space between them felt charged. Right now, he said quietly, that's enough. Her breath caught slightly. Because that answer wasn't simple. It was layered, and she felt it. Even if she didn't fully understand it yet. A sudden sound broke the moment. A phone, not hers. His. Kim didn't look away from her immediately. Then, he reached into his pocket, answered. Yes. Silence. Then, his expression shifted. Not visibly to anyone else. But Kamari saw it. Because she was watching closely. Listening. Where? He asked. A pause. Then, keep him there. He ended the call. The room felt different again. Sharper. More focused. Kamari frowned slightly. What happened? Kim didn't answer immediately. Then, they moved faster than expected. Her chest tightened. Who? Kim looked at her. And this time, there was no hesitation. The ones who were watching you. Silence. Because now, it wasn't distant anymore. It was close. Very close. Kamari's fingers curled slightly. What do they want? Kim's gaze didn't move. Then, you. The word landed quietly. But it hit harder than anything else. Kamari's breath stopped. Just for a second. Because now, there was no confusion. No guessing. No distance. This was real. And it had already started. The word didn't leave her mind. You. Not a possibility, not a warning. A target. Kamari didn't move, didn't speak. Because her body understood before her mind did. Danger. Real. Close. Her hand pressed gently against her stomach. Instinct. Protection. Because suddenly, leaving wasn't an option anymore. It was exposure. Her eyes stayed on him. What do you mean? Me? She asked quietly. Not panic. Clarity. Because she needed to understand. Kim didn't soften it, didn't change it. They're not watching the house anymore, he said. A pause. They're watching you. The air tightened. Kamari's breath slowed, but her chest felt heavier now. How? She asked. Because this didn't make sense. She hadn't left. She hadn't. They don't need to be close, Kim said, cutting through her thoughts. They just need to confirm patterns. Patterns. Kamari frowned slightly. What patterns? Kim stepped closer. The fact that you're here. A pause. That you didn't leave. Another pause. That I stepped in for you. Silence. Because now it connected. Everything. Kamari's jaw tightened slightly. So this is because of you, she said. Not accusation. Understanding. Kim didn't deny it. Yes. Simple. Clear. Kamari let out a slow breath. Then I should leave. The words came out steady. Logical. If she was the problem, remove the problem. Kim's eyes didn't move. No. The answer was immediate. Final. Kamari blinked. That doesn't make sense, she said. If I'm the reason... You're not the reason, Kim interrupted. His voice calm, but firm. You're the opportunity. That hit differently. Because it wasn't blame. It was positioning. Kamari's fingers curled slightly. Then removing the opportunity should solve it, she said. Still logical. Still thinking like someone outside his world. Kim shook his head slightly. No. A pause. It confirms it. Silence. Because now that made sense too. If she left, it meant she mattered. If she disappeared, it meant she was being protected. Either way, they would know. Kamari exhaled slowly. So I'm stuck, she said. Not emotional. Just real. Kim studied her. Then, you're placed. Not stuck. Positioned. There was a difference. And she felt it. Even if she didn't like it. What happens if they get close? She asked. Nah. Kim didn't hesitate. They won't. Confidence. Absolute. But Kamari wasn't asking for confidence. She was asking for truth. And if they do, she pressed. A slight push. Because she needed to know. Kim stepped closer. closer than before. His voice dropped slightly. Then they won't leave. Silence. Because that wasn't reassurance. That was a promise. Kamari held his gaze. And for the first time, she saw it clearly. This wasn't just protection. This was control over consequences. Real consequences. A sudden sound cut through the moment. Sharp. Fast. From outside, Kamari turned instinctively. Her heart jumping. "What was that?" she asked. Kim didn't look surprised. Didn't react quickly, which made it worse. Because that meant he expected it. Another sound. Closer this time. Movement. Fast. Not normal. Not controlled. Kamari's chest tightened. Because now, this wasn't conversation anymore. This was action. Kim turned slightly. His eyes focused now. Sharp. "Stay here," he said. Not loud, but absolute. Kamari didn't move. Because something inside her said, moving would make it worse. Footsteps approached. Fast. The door opened suddenly. A guard stepped in, breathing harder than before. "Sir, perimeter breach." The room froze. Kamari's heart stopped. Because that word meant everything had already gone too far. Kim didn't react immediately. Then, "Where?" The guard answered quickly. "East side. They didn't try to get in." A pause. They were testing. Testing. Kamari felt it in her chest. Because that meant this wasn't random. This was deliberate. Kim nodded once. "Lock it. Immediate. Already done." "Good." Silence. Then, Kim looked at Kamari. Not long. Just enough. And in that look, there was no question. No doubt. Just decision. "They've started," he said. Kamari's breath caught. Because now, there was no more distance. No more waiting. No more guessing. This wasn't coming. It was here. And she was at the center of it. The word stayed in the air. Breach. Kamari didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was movement. Her heartbeat slowed. Not from calm, from focus. Because panic wouldn't help here. "Stay here," Kim said again. But this time, his tone was different. Not just instruction. Expectation. Kamari nodded. She didn't argue, didn't question. Because for the first time since she arrived, she trusted the situation enough to follow. Kim turned, already moving. Fast, controlled. The guard followed immediately. The door closed behind them. And just like that, she was alone. But not the same kind of alone as before. This time, she knew something was coming. Kamari stepped back slowly, her eyes scanning the room. Every corner, every shadow. Because now, everything mattered. A soft vibration sound came from the table. Kamari turned. A phone. Not hers. Placed there earlier. She hadn't noticed it before. It lit up again. Unknown number. Her chest tightened. She didn't move at first. Because instinct told her this wasn't normal. The phone kept vibrating. Persistent. Deliberate. Kamari walked closer slowly, her fingers hovering above it. Then she picked it up. The call stopped. Silence. Then a message appeared. "You shouldn't have stayed." Kamari froze. Her breath caught. Because that message wasn't random. It was direct. It was for her. Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. Another message appeared. "Now we know where you are." Her heart pounded once. Hard. Because this was no longer outside. It had reached inside. A third message. "He can't protect you from everything." Kamari dropped the phone onto the table. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. Because now, there was no doubt. They weren't just watching. They were close. Very close. A sudden sound came from the hallway. Not footsteps. Something else. A shift. A scrape. Kamari turned toward the door instantly, her body alert. Listening. Another sound. Closer. Not controlled movement. Not one of his men. Different. Kamari stepped back slowly, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. Protective. Because now, this wasn't a system. This was a breach. The door handle moved. Slightly. Then stopped. Kamari's breath slowed. Because whoever was on the other side was testing. Just like outside. The handle moved again. Slow. Deliberate. Not forced. Trying. Kamari didn't scream, didn't panic. Because something inside her said, that would make it worse. The handle stopped. Silence. Then, a voice. Low. Right outside the door. "You should have left." Kamari's eyes widened slightly. Because that voice wasn't loud, but it was close. Too close. Her heart pounded. But she stayed still. Because now, every movement mattered. A soft knock followed. Not aggressive. Not rushed. Controlled. "You don't belong here," the voice continued. Kamari's fingers tightened. "You don't know what you walked into?" Silence. Then, the sound of footsteps. Retreating. Gone. Kamari didn't move immediately. Because sometimes the most dangerous moment was the one after. Seconds passed. Then, the door burst open. Fast! Kamari flinched. But it wasn't him. It was Kim. His eyes scanned the room instantly. Sharp. Focused. Then landed on her. "You're fine," he said. Not asking. Confirming. Kamari nodded once, but her voice came slower. Someone was here. Kim's expression didn't change, but the room felt colder. "What did they say?" he asked. Kamari swallowed. "Then, they know I stayed." A pause. "And they said you can't protect me from everything." Silence. Because that wasn't just a threat. That was a message. Kim stepped closer, his gaze steady. "They came this close," Kamari added quietly, her hand still resting against her stomach. inside your house. That mattered. More than anything. Because this place was supposed to be controlled. Untouchable. Kim's jaw tightened slightly. Just slightly. Then, they won't do it again. Calm. But different now. Not reassurance. Decision. Kamari looked at him, and for the first time, she understood something clearly. This wasn't just protection anymore. This was retaliation. And whatever came next would not be quiet. The room didn't move. But everything inside it had shifted. Kamari stood exactly where she was, her hand still resting on her stomach, her breathing controlled. But her eyes were locked on him, because she saw it now. Clearly, the difference. The man who spoke calmly and the man who acted after. Kim Du-han didn't raise his voice, didn't rush, didn't show anger. But something about him had changed. Subtly, dangerously. You said they tested the perimeter, he said. Not to her. To the guard behind him. Yes, sir. Kim nodded once. And now they've tested the inside. Silence. Because that wasn't an observation. That was a conclusion. The guard swallowed slightly. Yes. Kamari felt it in her chest. This wasn't escalation. This was confirmation. Kim turned slowly. Not toward the door. Toward the hallway. Then, seal the internal access. Immediate movement. No one moves alone. Another command. Check every blind point. Final. The system tightened again. But this time, it wasn't defensive. It was active. Kamari watched him. Because now, she understood something deeper. This wasn't fear. This was control being reasserted. Kim turned back to her, his eyes steady. Did you open the door? He asked. Kamari shook her head. No. A pause. They didn't try to force it. Another pause. They were talking. Kim studied her. What exactly did they say? Kamari repeated it. Every word. Carefully. Because she knew now, details mattered. You shouldn't have stayed. They know where you are. He can't protect you from everything. Silence followed. Because those weren't random threats. Those were statements. Calculated. Intentional. Kim didn't respond immediately. But his gaze darkened slightly. Not anger. Recognition. They're not trying to take you yet, he said. Kamari frowned. Then what are they doing? Kim stepped closer. Positioning. The word landed heavy. Because that meant this wasn't over. It hadn't even started properly. Kamari's fingers curled slightly. They want me scared, she said. Kim shook his head. No. A pause. They want you aware. That was worse. Because fear made people run. Awareness made them hesitate. Think. And hesitation created openings. Kamari swallowed. Why? Kim held her gaze. Because if you start questioning your position. A pause. You move wrong. Silence. Because now, it made sense. This wasn't just about power. This was psychological. Control without touching. Kamari exhaled slowly. They're trying to separate me from you, she said. Kim nodded once. Yes. Simple. Direct. Kamari looked away briefly, then back. And is it working? The question was quiet, but sharp, because she needed to know. Kim didn't hesitate. No. Absolute. Kamari studied him. Because that answer wasn't just confidence. It was certainty. And that meant he had already decided what came next. What are you going to do? She asked. Silence. Then Kim turned slightly. His voice calm. They crossed a line. A pause. And lines exist for a reason. Kamari's chest tightened because she remembered what he said before. About lines. About consequences. And when they're crossed? She asked quietly. Kim looked at her. And this time, there was no distance in his answer. They're corrected. The word sat between them. Cold. Final. Kamari felt it. Because that didn't mean warning. It didn't mean negotiation. It meant action. Real action. A knock came at the door. Sharp. Controlled. Kim didn't look away from her. Come in. The door opened. A man stepped in, different from the others. Older, sharper, more composed. He stopped a few steps away. It's confirmed, he said. The room stilled. Because this was the answer. Kamari's breath slowed. Who? Kim asked. The man hesitated. Just slightly. Then they're connected to the Han group. Silence. Heavy. Because that name meant something. Kamari didn't understand it. But she felt it. Because Kim's expression didn't change. But the room did. Completely. Another shift. Deeper. More dangerous. Kim nodded once. Then we move. No hesitation. No delay. Decision made. Kamari's eyes narrowed slightly. Move how? She asked. Kim looked at her. And for the first time, his answer carried weight beyond her. We end it. Silence. Because that wasn't strategy. That was direction. Kamari felt it in her chest. Because now, this wasn't just about her safety. This was about his world. And she had just triggered something inside it. Something that didn't stay quiet. Something that didn't forgive. Something that responded. Kim Duhan turned away, already moving, already thinking ahead. But before he left, he stopped. Without turning back. Stay in your room, he said. Not a request. A rule. And this time, Kamari didn't argue. Because now, she understood. The moment she stepped into his world, she didn't just gain protection. She became part of the consequences. The house didn't get louder. It got quieter. Not calm, not peaceful. Controlled silence. The kind that comes before something happens. Kamari felt it the moment he left the room. Everything slowed, not outside, inside her. Because now, she understood. Whatever he meant by "we end it" was already in motion. She walked back toward the hallway, stopped. The guards had changed positions. Closer, tighter. No gaps, no distractions. Even their eyes were different. Focused, sharp, prepared. Kamari didn't speak to them this time, because there was nothing left to ask. She turned, walked back into her room, closed the door. And for the first time since she arrived, she locked it. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she finally understood the world around him. Her back rested against the door. Her eyes closed briefly, then opened, because sleep was no longer something she could afford. Across the city, in a building that never appeared on maps, the air felt different. Not quiet, not controlled. Busy. Phones ringing, voices overlapping, movement without pause. Because someone had just made a mistake. And that mistake had a name. Kim Do-han. Inside a private room, 3 men stood around a table. Documents spread out, screens active, information moving fast. He responded faster than expected, one of them said. Another shook his head slightly. No, he didn't respond. A pause. He was already prepared. Silence. Because that meant this wasn't reaction. This was anticipation. A third man leaned back slightly. Then we miscalculated. Not fear. Realization. Because when men like Kim didn't react, it meant they had already seen the move before it happened. A phone buzzed on the table. One of them picked it up, looked at the screen. Then froze. What is it? The first man asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then, he's inside. Silence. Complete. Because that didn't make sense. Not logically, not strategically, not possible. Inside where? The second man asked. The answer came slower. Here. Back at the house. Kamari stood by the window. But she wasn't looking outside. She was thinking, connecting. Because everything that happened tonight was too precise to be random. She walked toward the table, picked up the phone again. The messages were still there. Cold. Simple. Threatening. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Then she locked it, not responding. Because she understood now. That was what they wanted. Engagement, reaction, weakness. She wouldn't give them that. A sudden vibration came again. This time, not the same number. Different. Unknown. Kamari stared at it. Then answered. Silence. No voice. Just breathing. Slow, deliberate. Kamari's grip tightened. Wrong move, she said calmly. The breathing stopped. Then, a voice. Low, distorted. You think he can protect you? Kamari didn't respond immediately. Because this time, she wasn't reacting. She was choosing. He already did, she said. Silence. Then, a small laugh. You don't understand where you are. Kamari's eyes hardened slightly. No, she replied. A pause. But I understand what you want. Silence again. Because that wasn't expected. You're not trying to take me, she continued, her voice steady. You're trying to make me step out. Another pause. Then, the line disconnected. Kamari lowered the phone slowly. Because now she was no longer guessing. She was inside it. And she was learning. Across the city, the door didn't open loudly. It didn't need to. Because presence alone was enough. Kim Duhan stepped inside. The room didn't react immediately. Not because they didn't notice, because they didn't understand. Until it was too late. One of the men turned first. His expression changed instantly. How? He didn't finish. Because Kim didn't answer questions. He ended them. The guards behind him moved in silence. Precise, fast. No chaos, no shouting. Just control. Within seconds, the room shifted. Not theirs anymore. His. Kim walked forward. Calm. Untouched. Like he had always been there. One of the men tried to step back. But there was nowhere to go. You sent someone into my house, Kim said. No anger. No emotion. Just fact. The man swallowed hard. This is a misunderstanding. No. The word stopped everything. Because that tone didn't allow lies. Kim stepped closer. You tested my perimeter. Another step. You approached my space. Another. And you spoke to her. Silence. Because now, this wasn't denial. This was confirmation of everything they did wrong. The man's voice broke slightly. You're overreacting. Kim looked at him. And for the first time, there was something visible. Not anger. Finality. No, he said quietly. I'm correcting. The room went cold. Because that word meant there was no way back. Kim turned slightly. Shut it down. And just like that, it was done. Not loudly, not violently. Efficiently. Completely. Back in her room, Kamari felt it. Not heard it, not seen it. Felt it. Like something in the air had shifted. Like a storm had passed. Without noise. Her hand moved to her stomach again. Gentle. Because whatever he had just done, it wasn't small. And somehow, she knew. This was only the beginning. The house stayed quiet. Not the kind of quiet that relaxes you. The kind that tells you something has already happened. Kamari felt it before she saw anything. A shift, subtle, but real. She stood by the window, unmoving, her reflection staring back at her. Because something inside her had settled. Not fear, not confusion. Awareness. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was inside it now. A soft knock came. Not urgent, not rushed. Controlled. Come in, she said. The door opened. The older woman stepped in again. But this time, there was something different. Less tension. But more certainty. He said you should eat, she said. Kamari blinked slightly. He? She asked. The woman nodded. Yes. No name needed. Kamari looked at the tray. Food, warm, carefully prepared. Normal. Too normal. Everything is fine? Kamari asked. The woman paused. Then, yes. This time, it sounded real. Not controlled, not restricted. Real. Kamari's chest eased slightly. But not completely. Because now she understood something. Fine didn't mean nothing happened. It meant something had been handled. She walked slowly to the table, sat, picked up the fork. But her mind wasn't on the food. It was on him. Because she knew. Whatever happened tonight was because of him and because of her. Across the city, the building was no longer active. It was empty. Not abandoned. Cleared. Screens off. Documents gone. People missing. Like it had never been used. Except for one thing. A message left behind. Simple. Clean. Deliberate. Don't repeat mistakes. No signature. No explanation. But everyone who needed to understand, understood. Back at the house, Kamari finished eating slowly. Not rushed, not distracted. Because something had changed inside her. She wasn't reacting anymore. She was thinking. A knock came again. Different this time. Not soft, not casual. Intentional. Kamari looked up. Come in. The door opened. Kim Do-han stepped in. Alone. Kamari didn't stand, didn't move, but her eyes followed him. Because now she saw him differently. Not just the man who stepped in, the man who ended things. Without noise, without hesitation, Kim walked in calmly. No sign of what had just happened. No trace. Like he had simply gone out and returned. You ate, he said. Kamari nodded slightly. Yes. A pause. Then, it's handled, he added. Simple. Just like that. Kamari studied him. Because that word meant more now. Handled how? She asked. Direct. No hesitation. Kim didn't respond immediately. Then, they won't reach you again. Not an explanation. A result. Kamari leaned back slightly. That's not what I asked. A small push. Because now, she wasn't avoiding the truth. She wanted it. Kim looked at her. Longer this time? Then, you don't need the details, he said. Calm. Controlled. Kamari held his gaze. I do if I'm part of it, she replied. Silence. Because that was true. And he knew it. Kim stepped closer. Not too close. But enough. You're part of the result, he said. A pause. Not the process. Kamari's brows pulled slightly. That sounds like control again. Kim didn't deny it. Yes? Simple. Kamari exhaled slowly. Then, at least you're honest. A small shift. Not agreement, but acknowledgement. Kim watched her for a moment. Then, they made a move, he said. Finally. A little more. And I ended it. Silence. Because that was all he would give. And somehow, it was enough. Kamari looked down briefly, then back up. And if more come? She asked. Kim didn't hesitate. They won't come the same way. That meant there would be more. Just different. Kamari felt it again. That quiet wait. Because now, this wasn't over. It had only changed form. A pause. Then, Kim added, this isn't about them anymore. Kamari frowned slightly. Then, what is it about? Kim's gaze sharpened slightly. Who sent them? Silence. Because that was bigger. Much bigger. Kamari's chest tightened slightly. And you'll find out. Not a question. A statement. Kim nodded once. Yes? Of course he would. Because that's what men like him did. They didn't stop at the surface. They went to the source. Kamari looked at him. Then, is it over for me? She asked quietly. Not weak. Just real. Kim held her gaze. No. No hesitation. No comfort. Just truth. Kamari nodded slowly. Because she expected that. Then, what do I do now? Kim didn't answer immediately. Then, you stay. The same answer. But now, it meant more. Because staying was no longer just a choice. It was positioning, protection, and involvement. Chum. Kamari leaned back slightly, then nodded once. All right. Not reluctant. Not scared. A decision. Kim studied her, then turned toward the door. But before he left, he stopped. Without looking back. This was the easy part, he said. Silence, because that sentence changed everything again. Kamari's breath slowed, because if that, what just happened, was the easy part, then what came next would not be quiet, would not be controlled, would not be simple. And for the first time since she entered his world, Kamari understood something clearly. She hadn't just stepped into danger. She had stepped into something much bigger than she imagined.
Has been worth it.
And it was only just beginning.
Now, a new chapter then
The night didn't feel the same anymore. Not because it was quieter, not because it was calmer, but because something had changed direction. Kamari stood alone in her room, lights dim, curtains slightly open. Her reflection stared back at her. But this time, she didn't look confused. She looked aware, because now she understood something clearly. This wasn't random. She wasn't chosen by chance. There was a reason. And whatever that reason was, it hadn't been revealed yet. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. Because everything now connected to that. The humiliation, the attention, the threat. Everything. A soft knock came. Kamari didn't turn immediately. Come in. The door opened. The older woman stepped in again. But this time, she didn't bring food. She brought something else. A file. Kamari's eyes narrowed slightly. What is that? She asked. The woman stepped closer, placed it gently on the table. Mister, Kim said you should see it. Kamari's chest tightened slightly. Why? The woman hesitated. Then, because things are about to change. That was enough. Kamari stepped forward, slowly, carefully, because something about that file didn't feel small. She opened it. Photos. Old. Some slightly faded, some clearer than others. Her brows pulled together, because the first few didn't make sense. Buildings, locations, people she didn't recognize. Then she turned the page and froze. Her breath stopped. Because the next photo was familiar, too familiar. A younger version of her, standing beside someone. A man. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the file. Because she knew that man. Not clearly, not completely, but enough. Her father. Kamari's heart pounded. Because this had nothing to do with tonight. This was before. Much before. She flipped the page. More photos. More records. Dates. Names. Connections. Her breathing slowed. Because now, it was starting to form. A pattern. Her father. Not just a normal man. Not just someone who disappeared from her life. Someone connected. Someone important. Someone involved. In something much bigger. Kamari closed the file halfway, her mind racing. Because now, the question changed. Not why me, but what was he part of? Because the truth was never about her. It was about where she came from. And now, the past wasn't buried anymore. It was exposed, right in front of her. Her father was never just a man who disappeared. He was part of something powerful, something dangerous, something that had just reached back for her. And suddenly, everything made sense. The attention, the watching, the threats. This was never random. She wasn't chosen. She was found. And Kim Do-han didn't just protect her by chance. He knew, or at least, he knew enough. Because in a world like his, nothing connects without a reason. And if her past was tied to his world, then this wasn't just a conflict anymore. This was history. And history doesn't stay buried forever. It comes back, stronger, deadlier, and far more dangerous than before. So the real question isn't, who is coming after Kamari? It's, what did her father leave behind? And why does it matter now? Because whatever it is, it's big enough to start a war. And this time, it won't be silent. It won't be controlled. And it definitely won't be easy. Welcome to the mafia's obsession, where power, betrayal, and obsession collide. If you thought things were intense before, then you're not ready for what's coming next. Because in part 3, the truth won't just be revealed. It will change everything. And once it does, there's no going back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Because part 3 is where the real story begins.